During dinner at my parents' house in Chapel Hill, everything looked staged. The cranberry juice was already poured, my seat pulled out, the usual small talk waiting to fill the gaps we refused to name. I hadn't seen them in months, not since I said no for the first time. No to the 12-0 bailout, no to saving Riley again. So when my phone buzzed in my lap, I expected maybe a meme from a coworker. Instead, I read, "Get up and leave. Don't say anything to your parents." No sender, no context, just finality. I looked around the table. My dad was mid-rant about traffic. My mom smiled like we were still pretending. Riley was scrolling like she didn't care I existed. I didn't know what scared me more, what the text meant, or how normal everything still looked. I didn't stand up. Not right away. Instead, I stared at the text like it might change if I blinked. "Get up and leave. Don't say anything to your parents." The period at the end of each sentence sat there like a full stop to logic. Like it wasn't a warning, just a fact. I slid my phone screen down beneath the edge of the table and forced a breath through my nose. "Cranberry juice okay, sweetheart?" my mom asked, setting a napkin on my lap like I was still 12. "Sure," I said. I hadn't touched the stuff in months. Not since I learned how they'd been slipping in comments about how it wouldn't kill you to loosen up. Harper usually after I declined a glass of wine or champagne. "Still living in that same apartment near campus?" my dad asked, slicing through the awkward with a butter knife smile. "Yeah." He nodded like that was a safe answer, neutral enough not to cause offense. Riley didn't even look up. She was too busy scrolling TikTok, one AirPod in, nails clacking against her screen like she couldn't even hear the tension at the table. That was her power, pretending things didn't exist until they went away. The food came next. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, the green beans my dad claimed were his favorite, even though we all knew he hated vegetables unless they were breaded or fried. I picked at my plate, listened to him complain about road construction like that was the most pressing problem in the world, and tried to remember what it used to feel like to be comfortable here. I couldn't. Somewhere between, "The city's wasting taxpayer money again," and "Your mother had to reroute through 6 neighborhoods just to get to the market," my phone buzzed again. Same number. No name. No subject line. I didn't even check it right away, just rested my hand over the phone and kept my face blank. Across from me, my mom raised her glass of white wine and smiled. "To second chances," she said softly. My stomach twisted. It was all too polished, too prepared. The chair, the juice, the easy questions. Even Riley's silence, it didn't feel like peace. It felt like choreography. And I was being led into a scene I didn't audition for. "I'm just gonna use the bathroom," I said, pushing my chair back gently. Nobody looked up. Nobody said anything. Not even Riley. I stepped out of the dining room, turned left toward the stairs, and climbed slowly, listening for any reaction behind me. None. At the top of the stairs, I moved quickly toward the upstairs guest bathroom, the one with a lock that actually worked. The one with no creaky floorboards and no sightlines from the hallway. I shut the door, turned the lock, sat on the edge of the tub. Only then did I check the second message. There wasn't one. Just the same text, staring back at me like it had been burned into the screen. I opened my call log. No name, no number saved, but my fingers knew who to dial before I had time to talk myself out of it. It rang once. Then he answered. "Harper?" His voice came through low and urgent. I hadn't heard it in over a year, but I knew it instantly. "Brandon?" "Yeah." "What the hell is going on?" I whispered. My voice bounced off the tile walls and back into my chest. There was a pause. Then, "You need to leave. Now." He sounded like he was standing in a closet, barely breathing. "I'm not joking. Don't drink anything. Just go." I stood, walked over to the sink, and turned on the faucet just enough to cover the conversation in case someone was listening. "You can't just say that and expect me to run," I said. "Why? What's in the drink?" Another pause. "I don't know exactly," he said. "But Riley mentioned something. Something about getting into your phone transferring money without you knowing. I blinked. That doesn't even make sense. You'd need my fingerprint. Yeah, Brandon said. That's the point. I looked down at my hands, my thumb. The exact thing I used to unlock every secure app I had: banking, crypto, even my damn password vault. My mouth went dry. I didn't drink anything, I murmured. Good, he said quickly. Don't. I let that sit. The air in the bathroom felt suddenly thinner. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Aren't you with Riley? His breath caught on the other end. We're not really together anymore, he said. Not since she started pulling this stuff. I didn't know how far it went. I didn't want to believe it either. I sat down again on the tub's edge, gripping the phone like it was the only real thing left in the house. I overheard something, he continued. Last week, she was on the phone with your mom. They were talking numbers. She said, Harper always blacks out after a drink. And then something about your fingerprint. I didn't want to believe it until tonight. When I saw the invite. When I heard you were coming. It lined up too well. I closed my eyes. The pulled-out chair. The untouched juice. The fake cheer. 2 second chances. They didn't want peace. They wanted access. You should have told me sooner, I said. I didn't know how, he replied. I thought maybe I was being paranoid. You're not. The words came out before I could stop them. There was a long silence on both ends of the line. I can't prove it, he finally said. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And I'm scared for you. I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see me. I'm not leaving yet, I said. Harper. No, if they're going to do this, I want to see it. I want to catch it. Brandon didn't argue. Maybe he knew me too well. Be careful, he said. And whatever you do, don't let them touch your phone. I hung up. My hand stayed frozen midair for a moment before I lowered it to my lap. Something sharp had settled into my spine. Not quite fear, not quite fury, but something cold, something steel. I stared at myself in the mirror. The girl in the glass looked calm. But she wasn't going back to dinner empty-handed. Being the older sister never came with a crown. Just responsibilities, unspoken, assumed, heavy. We were 3 years apart. That was all it took for Riley to be the baby forever. And me? I was the dependable one. The quiet one. The one who knew better. When we were kids, Mom and Dad gave us $5 a week. I saved mine. Riley didn't. She blew it on glitter pens or candy, and by Wednesday, she'd be broke and wide-eyed. That's when the pressure started. Don't be selfish, Harper, they'd say. She's younger, just help her out. It wasn't a rule, it was a rhythm. If I had, she deserved. If she lost, I covered. By high school, I was working weekends at the corner pharmacy, ringing up cough drops and coloring books just so I wouldn't have to beg for jeans. Riley, meanwhile, lounged at home watching makeup tutorials and somehow still got everything she asked for. When she wanted to see a movie? She doesn't have a job, Harper. You do. When she forgot to pay for her class trip? She's stressed, sweetie. You're so responsible you can help, right? Every time I said yes, it wasn't because I wanted to. It was because saying no felt like betrayal. Not of her but of their expectations, of the version of me they relied on, the steady fallback. The fixer. It continued in college. I left for UNC Chapel Hill, 2 states away, thinking I'd finally breathe. I got a tiny dorm, a cramped part-time coding job, and just enough distance to believe I was free. For a while, I was. Then came the calls. Can you help with Riley's enrollment deposit? She's so excited, but textbooks are ridiculous these days. She's not working yet. It's a lot to juggle. The pattern was unchanged, only now it wore adult language. Help. Support. Family duty. And I said yes. Again. Because I thought if I made more, it would feel lighter. It didn't. The more I made, the more they wanted. Promotions became invitations for new demands. You're so good with money, Harper. You're the stable one. You know Riley's just struggling. I watched my paychecks disappear into tuition payments, emergency fees, even a spring break trip that was suddenly educational. And Riley? Still no job. Still no thank you. What cracked me wasn't a big moment. It was a small one. I got a raise at 26, a big one. Called my mom to share the news. She said, "That's great. Do you think you could help Riley study abroad this semester?" "No. Congratulations. No, I'm proud of you." Just another hand reaching out. So I stopped saying yes. I didn't announce it. I didn't throw a fit. I just unplugged. No more surprise Venmo requests. No more guilt-wrapped favors. No more treating my income like a group project. What followed was silence. Cold, calculated silence. No calls, no texts. Just the void of a family that didn't know how to love without asking for something. Until one day, the silence broke. "Riley needs help. It's serious. $12,000. They wouldn't say what for. Just that she was in trouble. That I could afford it. That I was her sister. So I called Riley directly. That's when the truth spilled out. Gambling. A bad streak. She owed money to people who weren't patient. "If this gets out, I'm done," she whispered. "No one hires someone in finance with a gambling history." I asked if it had happened before. She didn't answer. That told me everything. I told her, "No. Not later. Not less. No." She called me cold. And maybe I was. But maybe for the first time I didn't want to be anything else. I stood at the sink for a full 30 seconds before unlocking the door. My reflection stared back at me, composed, cold, controlled. But beneath that, a wildfire. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. I didn't leave. I couldn't. If they were really going to do it, I wanted to see it. I walked back downstairs like I hadn't just learned that my family may have planned to drug me and rob me. Like I hadn't just decided to play a game they didn't know I understood. The table was exactly how I left it. Chicken bones, mashed potatoes congealing, my glass of cranberry juice still untouched, still gleaming unnaturally bright under the chandelier light. My mother glanced up. "Everything okay?" I smiled. "Headache's gone." She smiled back, just a little too long. Dad gave me a nod. Riley didn't look up at all. I sat, picked up my fork, pushed a green bean across my plate, waited. Then it came. "You haven't touched your drink," Mom said lightly, nudging the glass closer. "It's going to get warm." "It's your favorite," Dad added, casual, perfectly timed. My throat tightened. I looked at the juice like it was a bomb. Bright red, sweet, innocent. And maybe it was nothing. Maybe Brandon had misunderstood. Maybe this was just them being them again, pressuring, manipulating, guilting in small, familiar ways. But then I looked up. Mom's expression was too calm. Dad's posture was too still. And Riley? Her fingers hovered above her phone screen like she was waiting for something. A signal. I picked up the glass slowly. Tilted it toward me. Gave them a soft smile. "Tastes like I remember," I said. Then I pretended to take a sip, but nothing touched my lips. I set the glass down. Waited. "What was that noise outside?" I asked suddenly, turning my head toward the front window. "A car in the driveway?" All three of them turned to look. In that split second, I reached under the table, tilted the glass sideways, and let just enough of the juice spill into the carpet. No splash, just a slow soak. Silent, hidden. I wiped the rim of the glass with my napkin and set it down as if nothing had happened. Then I sat back and began the performance. Slightly slower blinks. A heavier exhale. My shoulders slackened. I pressed a hand to my forehead and said softly, "Yeah, I don't know. Just feel weird, tired." Mom leaned in instantly, her face the picture of concern. "You okay?" "I think I need to lie down for a minute." She touched my arm. Dad stood. Riley finally looked up. They moved in unison like they'd practiced it. And I let them guide me to the couch. Because now, the real show was just beginning. The couch cushion was warm beneath my shoulder. A blanket was draped over my legs, tucked in with care. I closed my eyes, let my limbs go limp, and breathed as evenly as I could. Just beneath the steady inhale-exhale, my heart pounded like a warning bell. Steady, Harper. Breathe like you're asleep. Don't flinch. Soft footsteps padded away from me, across the living room floor. Then a whisper, low and close. Is she asleep? It was Riley. Yeah, my dad said. She's out. Okay, my mom added. Let's do this quickly. I heard the sound of my phone being picked up from the coffee table. Then something worse. Fingers curling around my hand. My thumb being gently lifted, positioned against the sensor. A pause. Then click. A soft vibration. Unlocked. It felt like watching someone undress your mind. Okay, we're in, Riley whispered. More tapping. Banking app, my dad muttered. She keeps everything saved. How much are we taking? My mom again. Still soft, still calm, like they were choosing curtains, not committing a felony. Not all of it, Dad replied. Just enough to settle it. Settle what? My breathing stayed steady, my face slack. Inside, my stomach curled. She won't even know, Mom said. If it goes through clean, she'll just think she transferred it herself. I told you, Riley added. She always blacks out after a drink. We just needed her to sleep through it. There it was. Out loud. No hesitation. No shame. Then a pause. It's asking for a code, Riley muttered. What? Two-step verification, she hissed. She changed it. Dad cursed under his breath. Try another app. Tapping, swiping. Same thing, Riley said. Everything's locked. They all went quiet. Then Mom sighed, frustrated. Just put the phone back. Silence again? The soft clink of the phone on the table. Then shifting bodies. Couch springs creaked as they moved away, sat down again, maybe even tried to pretend nothing happened. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Just long enough. Then I stirred. Slowly, like someone waking from a shallow nap. Eyes fluttered open. 1 blink. 2. I sat up slowly, pressing my hand to my temple. Sorry, I mumbled. Don't know what that was. Felt like I blacked out for a sec. They looked at me like I'd just risen from the dead. You sure you're okay? Dad asked. Yeah, I said, managing a weak laugh. I think I just need some fresh air. No one protested. No one tried to stop me. Thanks for dinner, I said, standing. My knees weren't even shaky, but I let them wobble a bit for effect. We're glad you came, Mom said. Get home safe, Dad added. They didn't hug me this time. Just watched. I walked to the door, wrapped my coat tighter, and stepped into the cold North Carolina night. I didn't look back. But they never saw the recording app, running silently in the background. No blinking light, no red dot. Just pure audio, from start to finish. Every word, every whisper, every tap on the screen. While they were trying to steal from me, they were recording themselves doing it. Because they forgot one thing. I don't just work in tech. I build security systems. I design for people trying to outsmart other people. They underestimated me. They always had. The night air hit me like a reset button, cool, crisp, and mercilessly real. For a moment, I just stood there on the porch, listening to nothing but the distant hum of traffic and my own breath. I had the recording. I had everything. And yet, my hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of what I now knew. They didn't just try to steal from me. They never saw me as a daughter, only as access. The door creaked behind me. We'll walk you out, my mom said gently. I turned. They were all there. Mom, Dad, Rylined, up like a farewell committee. I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. One by one, they stepped forward. My mom hugged me first. Her perfume was the same, lavender and something sweeter, almost maternal. But now it smelled like poison. Then my dad, stiff-armed and brief, like he was doing it out of duty. And finally, Riley. She gave me a half hug, one arm, no eye contact. It wasn't planned, it was reflex, a family muscle twitching on cue. But as they touched my shoulders, hands, backside, realized something inside me had snapped. This wasn't love, it was choreography. And I was done dancing. I stepped back and smiled like nothing had changed. "Thanks for dinner," I said, voice steady. They smiled back. "We'll talk soon," Mom said. "Text us when you get home," Dad added. I nodded. But we wouldn't talk. I wouldn't text. Because after tonight, there was nothing left to say. I walked to my car, got in, shut the door. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for leaving them behind. I just felt clean. As I pulled out of the driveway, I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the grief had already passed. They didn't get what they wanted. They didn't even get to know I knew. They thought I was unconscious. They thought I was weak. They had no idea I was already gone. I didn't drive home. I didn't even hesitate. I turned left instead of right, took the longer route through downtown Chapel Hill, and pulled into the small brick police station I'd passed 100 times but never entered. There was no urgency in my steps. No racing heartbeat. Just clarity. I stood in line behind a man arguing about a parking citation. When it was my turn, I stepped forward and said, "I need to report a crime." The officer behind the glass blinked. "What kind of crime?" "They drugged me," I said calmly, "and tried to steal from me." She blinked again. Harder this time. "Do you know who did it?" "Yes." I didn't pause. "My parents, and my sister." They brought me into a smaller room. Neutral walls, flickering overhead lights, a desk with a chair that creaked too much when I sat. A detective joined a few minutes later. Late 30s. No nonsense. He didn't ask why I wasn't crying. He just said, "Tell me what happened." So I did. I showed him the recording. Played the part where they said, "She always blacks out." Where my thumb was lifted. Where they tried to log into my bank account. Where they argued over how much to take. He didn't interrupt once. Just sat there, listening, jaw tightening with each word. Then I showed him the bank app logs, the failed login attempts, the timestamp that matched the audio. The trail they left while thinking I was unconscious. "This is serious," he finally said. I nodded. "I know." He asked if I was okay, if I needed a place to stay, if I had support. "I already left," I told him. It was the first time I had ever filed a police report. And yet, it didn't feel foreign. It felt like filing a line under a column that had been waiting to be closed. 2 days passed. Then my phone lit up. 3 texts. 1 voicemail. All before lunch. First my mom. "Did you seriously report your own family?" Then, "What is wrong with you?" I didn't respond. The voicemail was from Riley. Her voice was small, tight. "It was just a mistake, Harp. You made it worse than it had to be." Right. Because the drugging part had clearly been a minor misunderstanding. Then, Dad. "You think the police will fix this? You'll ruin everything. You don't do this to your own." I stared at the message for a long second, then typed back one line. "You drugged me. You tried to steal from me. That's not family. That's a crime." And then I blocked them. All of them. Mom, Dad, Riley. Group chats, emergency bypasses, gone. I changed my number. Updated my will. Froze my credit. Just in case. And when I went to bed that night, for the first time in my adult life, I slept without my phone on the pillow. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. They didn't fight the charges. Not after the audio. Not after the failed bank attempts matched the timestamps. Not after the detective said calmly, "We can do this the easy way, or the hard way." They took the plea deal. 1 year probation, fines, community service, a no-contact order, no jail time, but it stuck. They were no longer allowed to reach me. Not legally, not emotionally. I didn't check in, didn't ask how court went, didn't care. But word trickled in anyway. My cousin on Dad's side messaged me out of nowhere. They sold the house. Something about court debt. Thought you should know. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I refused to carry their consequences on my back anymore. They had gambled with me. And lost. I ran into Riley once. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Grocery store across town. I was buying pasta. She was restocking shelves. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and just kept her back turned, eyes fixed on a row of paper towels like they held the answers to her new life. No makeup, no flashy earrings, no smug smirk. Just a polo shirt, a vest, silence. Finance hadn't worked out, I guessed. I paid for my groceries and left without saying a word. Her boyfriend? Gone. Moved out weeks after the story went public. Didn't make a scene. Just vanished. Some things don't need dramatic exits. They dissolve on their own. And me? I don't get emergency texts anymore. No family group chats asking for help. No guilt-flavored holiday invitations. I don't check my phone 10 times a day, waiting for the next wave of obligation. I open my fridge and know everything inside was bought by me for me. No one else's name is on my account. No one else holds my passwords. No one else has access. And for the first time in my life, that doesn't feel selfish. It feels like peace. I used to think cutting them off would feel like ripping out a piece of my own body, like I'd grieve them forever. But it didn't feel like grief. It felt like breathing again.